Hi, everyone. We've set up this Being an Engineer podcast as an industry knowledge repository, if you will. We hope it'll be a tool where engineers can learn about and connect with other companies, technologies, people, resources, and opportunities. So make some connections and enjoy the show.
Hello and welcome to another exciting episode of the Being an Engineer podcast. Today we are privileged to speak with Jad Allam, who is an accomplished group vice president at Applied Medical, specializing in product and process development. With over 16 years of experience, he has led cross-functional teams to enhance manufacturing efficiency and product quality. Jad's notable achievements include the development of the Gen 2 Voyant generators and devices, increasing their yield significantly and boosting profitability. He holds advanced degrees in engineering and operations research and actively contributes to educational initiatives as chairman of the board for the International School for Science and Culture in Costa Mesa, California. Jad, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Oh, thank you for inviting me. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. So what made you decide to become an engineer?
Well, while growing up, I remember asking a lot of questions, a lot. I remember my mom saying one time, "I'm not an encyclopedia, so please stop asking." Then she went and bought one the following week. So she
if only ChatGPT existed back then.
I know, right? At that time, yeah. But no, honestly, I mean, my parents, my environment encouraged me to ask questions, and my parents did the best they could to provide me with information. That's before the internet was available to everyone and as fast as today, right? With the modem and so on.
Yeah.
Both of them are engineers, so that put me in that category right away. And I built a lot of Legos, honestly. So
awesome. Pretty typical for engineering background.
Right.
Nice. So you are a vice president right now, and you've been with the same company for, I think, 16 years, something like that, Applied Medical, and started off as a process engineer. Can you share with us a little bit about the journey of how you found your way to Applied Medical, and then kind of the journey from process engineer to VP now?
Yeah, absolutely. I started with the company in 2007. We had 3 or 4 buildings on site. Part of the business model of Applied's business model, what drew me to the company is the vertical integration. So we tend to bring processes in-house on site, right? Today, just to forward in time, today we have about 22 facilities on site, and the business model still is the same thing. So from an engineering point of view, this is like having a giant playground of manufacturing capabilities, the ability to research, develop, prototype, different labs, and so on. Along the way, I was fortunate to have team leaders that provided me with opportunities to continue learning. Nobody said, "Oh, this is not your area. Oh, no, you cannot ask questions," right? So whenever I see an opportunity to learn about a system, about a process, about a device or a different product family, I was given this information. And that's how I learned and how I grew. And I grew in my responsibilities as well. I continued learning about different regulatory considerations, new design methods, and new financial standards that I didn't have in my original background in engineering. In 2014, the Voyant product line was launched at Applied, and I had the opportunity to lead that team, that process team. And since then, I've been growing with the product family, growing the team, and our capacity to build devices.
Terrific. And as I understand, you were instrumental in scaling up the production of this Gen 2 Voyant device. Can you tell us what is this device, first of all, and then what were some of your responsibilities in scaling it up? What were some of the challenges that you and your team encountered, and how did you overcome them?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. As I tell everyone, I'm part of a team, right? So the credit is not to one person only. We're all a team at Applied, and we contribute to the success of the product family and the organization. The Voyant product family consists of a generator, which is a capital equipment that is placed in the OR, and disposable devices are connected to it. These devices, the main function is to seal vessels during different laparoscopic procedures or open surgeries, and seal vessels or tissue bundles and transect them via a mechanical blade. So it's a bipolar device. Devices are disposable, single use. Generator is capital equipment. Gen 2 specifically is the second generation of that product family that was launched in 2019. Gen 1 was launched end of 2014, early 2015. So 5 years later, we were able to come up with a second generation based on customer feedback, based on improvements that we thought we can make with the devices, and to be able to scale, right? With the development of release of new products, after getting regulatory approvals from the FDA, for example, and EU market, our goal is to get to market as soon as possible. With that said, we sometimes, a lot of times, release a product with suboptimal yields and high standard costs, right? Which is fine. This allows us to gather feedback from the field. This allows us to see what the customers think of our product before investing way too much to build 50,000 of something the customer or the end user does not like, right? What does that mean from an engineering side? It means we have to start working. This is where the fun begins. This is where the cost improvement begins, the design improvements begin. We definitely have to hit, from a business standpoint, we have to hit a certain gross profit margin, right? Which tells us, okay, yield has to be at X amount, standard cost has to be at X amount. What do we need to change? Do we need to go from machining parts to molding them, right? To metal injection molding. Afterwards, maybe from metal injection molding to stamping, for example, right? Machining, as you know, takes a lot of time, a lot of labor, a lot of overheads, right, for the machines. Stamping can happen with, 500 parts a minute or more, so very low cost in that regard. But to reach that level, we need to either redesign our product, redesign our line, and requalify, right? So this is the big challenge in scaling up this product family. So we went from selling 500 devices a month to a few months ago, but we hit 30,000 devices a month, right?
Wow, amazing.
Right. Yeah, this is about 15% market share. So yeah, we're getting there.
Congratulations. That's terrific.
No, thank you. Yeah.
Can you think of a specific, like a story or an incident as you started scaling up, one of the roadblocks you encountered that had to be overcome to get your yield up, get your overall cost down? Anything in particular that you can share in whatever detail you're comfortable?
Yeah, absolutely. The one big one is recruiting and hiring team members, both on the engineering side and the production side, to be able to grow, right? If we're building with the numbers that I just mentioned, then we need, from the engineering side, we need team members to be able to support these. We always, in production, we have non-conformances, we have scrap, we have operator errors in assembly, we have to revise our instructions, right? We need new molds, higher cavitation molds, and so on and so forth. So we need a strong team to support that. Team members need some local leadership as well, right? Because we want to speed up document approval. We don't want everyone to rely on one or two approvers, for example, for document review, where everything bottlenecks. Yes, we have all these ideas, all these projects, but we only have two reviewers of the company. We had that instance before, so I learned from it. We learned from it. So we have to train, standardized training, train the trainer, so to speak, right? And then that's one challenge. Another one is increasing regulatory requirements. Over the past 5-6 years in the medical device field, let me go back. Maybe 6-7 years ago, we could make an improvement or a design change on a component for easier manufacturability, and maybe a month or two with a certain set of deliverables. Nowadays, a similar project takes 9 months, maybe 12 months. So I understand why there's increased requirements, right, for the safety of the patient, safety of the end user, a lot of risk assessment, environmental requirements and international markets and so on. But this is a challenge that we're facing today.
Yeah, I've been hearing a lot about this over the past several years, the increasing regulatory requirements from the FDA to medical device companies. So going from 2 months to 9 months, that's a big change. That's a hard pill to swallow for companies like yours, I'm sure. That 9-month period, the additional, 7 months roughly, what is a lot of that just waiting for the FDA to approve things, or is a lot of that time taken up with actual work that your team has to be actively doing the whole time?
Yeah, it's the latter. This example that I mentioned does not require reapproval or initial approval from the FDA. It's more deliverables that we have to tackle, is address validation here, address clinical research, address risk assessment on the different levels, right? Which didn't used to be this way before. Actually, if a project needs FDA approval, the wait time has improved from the FDA. But to get there, to prepare the file, to submit for that approval, that takes a long time.
And this is the 510K or
Correct.
PMA if it's a class 1. Yeah, okay. Well, thinking about improving manufacturing efficiencies, are there any key strategies that you've implemented to help expedite that process?
Yeah, I mean, the first and I would say the most important factor is yield. With high scrap or low yield, it affects how many devices are, or the throughput, right? It affects how long production is spending on a certain batch or a certain shop order. It affects how many team members are needed to output a certain number of parts, right? And it's a loss for the company. It's just product that gets built, doesn't pass inspection, gets scrapped, is gone. So I would say from our team, from the engineering team, the main focus to improve manufacturing efficiency is yield. What can we do? Why are we failing these devices? What is going wrong? And this is where we are fortunate at Applied, because when we start asking different questions like the 5 whys method or follow different root cause analysis method, we don't hit a point where we say, oh, we have to contact the vendor. Oh, they're not going to get back to us for another 2-3 weeks, right? So here we're fortunate in, okay, do I need to find out the reason or the root cause? Do I need to speak with someone, with an SME for this process? Okay, let me walk across the street, take a look at this process, maybe try some stuff, prototype it, right? For root cause analysis, turn on, turn off, turn on, right? To make sure that this is the right root cause. We have the ability to do that, to figure out what needs to happen. And as you know, figuring out what the problem is, that's 50% or even more than 50% of finding the solution. So
yeah. I love what you're saying about the vertical integration there at Applied. It just sounds like an engineer's playground. I know that I'm always thinking about how can we accelerate the speed of engineering in our own team, right? And one of the areas I see a lot of time wasted is maybe too strong a word to use, but spent at least, is waiting for our suppliers to get back to us. Maybe we need, whatever it is, we need this new material delivered, or we need, some kind of inspection performed or something like that. And, we're beholden to them for a week or 2 weeks until they get back to us. And to have all of that just in-house where you can walk across the street and say, hey, here's this thing. Can you help me with this today, tomorrow? Wow. What an amazing, savings that must be, not just in dollars, but in time.
Yeah, absolutely. You're absolutely right. I hear it from my colleagues who work at different companies, and it's like that. They wait. And especially if you're working with an international supplier, you're just waiting. And if you're waiting for them to send you something and it's not what you requested, you're starting over.
No. Yeah. Wow. So, okay. Well, speaking of production yields and improving them, sometimes that requires a cross-functional team, right? You maybe have a mechanical engineer, some kind of SME. Maybe there's someone from the production staff that's part of that. Maybe there's an electrical person, a biomedical person. Have there been any breakthroughs that your cross-functional teams have achieved? And if you can think of an occurrence, kind of walk us through the process. How did that come to be?
Yeah, sure. We also have, I didn't mention that before, but we have our own internal automation team at Applied, right? So once processes are stable and mature, right, meaning we can expect what the scrap to be, we understand the different parameters that affect the process, automation is the next step. On working with vendors, when we start working with vendors to automate these processes, long lead time, we don't always get what we want. There are limitations that the vendors have based on their expertise and so on. So that's why we have our own in-house automation team. With that said, one major, you can call it major breakthrough, but once we go to that automation step, the savings and the lead time grow exponentially. The lead time decreases, but the savings grow exponentially. The ability to scale up grows exponentially, right? So this is naturally how we move through processes after hand assembly and manual assembly and so on. It's toward automation.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Well, you're preaching to the choir here. That's what we do is automation. So I love it. Keep talking about that.
Nice.
What are some things that you have done to foster a culture of continuous improvement in your teams?
Yeah. During one-on-ones, one of the first questions I ask team members, not every week, but it's, do you feel challenged? Are you still learning? Right? If they don't believe they are, we have to find why, right? And we have to identify new areas for them to learn from, whether it's a new process, a new device, new project, or transfer to a different team, right? Because we have all these capabilities in-house, there is that opportunity to transfer for lateral transition. So I believe when I ask this question, it makes the team member really think like, okay, am I just doing the routine work, or is there something that I'm learning? Because if they don't, it doesn't lead to a good outcome afterwards, right? Also in-house, we have an internal training and development team, right? That they create courses, curriculum about different subjects, from stamping, for example, or springs manufacturing to basic company finances, right? Leadership essentials, or how to conduct a meeting. We do hire fresh graduate engineers that have not been part of a professional setting, right? Maybe they don't have familiarity with how to conduct meetings. So all team members are encouraged to sign up for these courses and learn from them. What else? We also review, we set and review periodically the 1-year plan for each team member, at least on our team, to make sure they're progressively getting larger scope assignments, right? To meet their strength, their interests, and the team's needs. With these different methods, the hope is nobody gets bored, right? Because I know that boredom and not feeling challenged leads to team members becoming disengaged, right? And maybe negatively impacting their peers, and ultimately they'll start looking for another job. So
yeah, That's very insightful. I love those questions. Are you feeling challenged? That's terrific. And I can definitely see how that would lead to a strong culture where people are feeling fulfilled. And there's just, I mean, like you said, if you're learning, if you're continuously learning something, you're going to be a lot less likely to get bored and start looking for something else. So it just builds longevity in your team members. That's terrific. All right. You, in your LinkedIn profile mention, data analytics. What role has analytics played in your decision-making process? And are there any examples that you can share?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, engineering and data goes hand in hand, right?
Yeah.
It's, we heavily rely on data on making, like day-to-day decisions, right? As well as for strategic plans, 5-year plans or so on. Some examples, we rely on statistics like IMR charts, right? To monitor our processes, to determine if the process, if it's still within the control limits, is it hitting the upper control limit, lower control limit. We put maybe alert levels beforehand, what are we gonna do? What should we stop? Should we not? To bring it back in control or to nominal, right? We use other statistical tools, include gauge R&R when we're validating test methods, right? We have to make sure our test methods and our inspections can detect conforming versus non-conforming devices. Some of our devices have higher risk than others, and they have to go through rigorous testing. So we have to definitely rely on data for that. Other examples are the estimated completion dates of projects directly impacts how we manage inventory, right, from a business level. For example, if we're bringing a component in-house, from purchasing it from a vendor to bringing it in-house, we don't want to buy from the vendor 2 years worth of inventory if the project is closing in 2 months, 3 months.
Right.
It doesn't make sense, right? So we have to coordinate, see, okay, what is the risk and delays for this? What is the cost of inventory? Even if we have extra inventory, is it okay to scrap it, for example? What is the consumption? Are there new product development or new areas where this material is going to be used from the vendors? Is it going to go to waste? Can we use it in a different process? All this is we have to collect that information and move forward with that. So these are a few examples.
Perfect. Yeah, great examples. Well, I'll take just a short pause here and share with everyone that the Being an Engineer podcast is brought to you by Pipeline Design and Engineering, where we don't design pipelines, but we do help companies develop advanced manufacturing processes, automated machines, and custom fixtures, complemented with product design and R&D services. Learn more at teampipeline.us. The podcast is also sponsored by The Wave, an online platform of free tools, education, and community for engineers. Learn more at thewave.engineer. Today we have the privilege of speaking with Jad Allam. So, Jad, let's talk a little bit about product development and how it aligns with market needs and how you determine what that alignment is. I mean, how do you make sure that the products you're developing are something that the market wants to buy? I want to share just something real quick here. I heard a podcast with Seth Godin recently. Seth Godin, for those of you who don't know him, is kind of a marketing guru. He's written quite a few books out there. And someone asked him, like for his number one tip on business or something like that. I can't remember exactly what it was, but his answer was so just beautifully succinct. He says, make sure you're selling something that people want to buy. And I thought, I mean, it seems so obvious, but like how many times do we miss that, right? And it was just so beautifully short and concise and simple. Make sure you're selling something that people want to buy. So how does your team, or the applied medical team ensure that you're selling something people want to buy?
Yeah, I mean, 100%, exactly as you said. It starts with what do end users or what do customers need, right? So we, as an engineering team, we work hand in hand with the clinical development team, who is responsible for visiting hospitals, speaking with surgeons, speaking with nurses, gathering feedback about our products and potentially new products, new innovative products that do not exist. Maybe they need a solution for an application that they use, right, during surgery. So that's where it all starts. Now that's great because we found out that a lot of surgeons have a lot of ideas, right? So we, with the help of the different teams, engineering, clinical, and so on, we prioritize, right? Okay, this makes sense. This doesn't make sense. We hear about this from international markets more. We hear about this domestically more. And at the end of the day, it has to make sense from a business standpoint as well. Well, okay, yeah, we can make this device. And then what? Is it going to cost us more to make it just to fulfill this or not? So all these discussions happen at the beginning. But as you mentioned, it has to, regularly throughout the project, we have to make sure that we're still on the right track, right? So whether it's definitely through prototyping at the beginning, we have medical experts that we partner with that regularly review certain projects, especially for new product development, and give us feedback, right? Throughout that development phase, we make improvements to the design, not to the manufacturing at that point, not quite, but it's mostly to the design and to the functionality of the product. We assess the risk throughout the project. The FDA is big on that, actually, and EU as well, because that risk assessment can also drive design changes and design updates. So it doesn't necessarily impact the functionality, but it changes how we can meet this requirement, right? Via different areas. The ultimate validation is a phase throughout that development phase is called design validation. This is where we actually build devices that are production-like devices with production-like manufacturing processes and take these devices to the field and let surgeons actually test them, right? They do pass all clearance, all biocompatibility clearance, artwork, labeling, and so on. So they can be sold after this item is checked, but this is the ultimate one. But to reach that, a lot of investment would have been made already in tooling, in molds, in machines, and setting up lines in the clean room, and training team members, coming up with the necessary documentation. So yeah, if we reach design validation phase and it doesn't pass, that's not good at all. So right. So we definitely do that throughout the project through different phases.
You mentioned risk assessment and that being something that's ongoing throughout the development and manufacturing phases. There are tools, of course, to perform risk assessment, FMEA being probably one of the primary tools. But even these tools are reliant on people to add the correct inputs, and people are fallible, right? We all make mistakes. We all miss things. Has there been a situation where your team is filling out the FMEA and you think, yep, we've got everything. We've identified all the different risks. We've labeled them. We understand what the outcomes will be. We're addressing them. And then you get, 2/3 of the way through the project, or maybe even well into manufacturing, and realize, oh no, there's this other risk that we just missed. We didn't know about it at the time, but now for whatever reason, we see that there's this additional risk. Has that ever happened? And if so, how do you deal with that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it happens. I wouldn't say often, but it does happen, maybe 50% of the time. Now, with the items that we missed or that we don't know about, their impact might not be as high, right? Items that we miss with high impact, that's less often, I would say, right? We do rely on experts, internal and external, to help us through this assessment, especially if it's a new area, it's a new market, if you want, that us as a company, we don't have experience with, right?
Yeah.
We do rely on gathering the right information and as much information as possible. From a process standpoint, PFMEA, for example, the risk is an additional tooling, right? That's the most expensive thing, or the need for additional equipment or different type of equipment or different process altogether. Let's say we selected a material and we're going to mold it, but then at high heat during the functionality of the device, it doesn't perform as expected. Going back to changing this material and finding a new one and then adjusting the shrink rate of this new material and then making new tools for that and adjusting the machines to be able to mold this new material, that's cumbersome. That puts the project back 6-9 months or so, right?
Yeah.
From a design FMEA or use FMEA point of view, it's through the different prototyping. It's through the medical experts. We do rely on them to look, we have a surgeon who has 20-25 years of experience who comes periodically, and then they're responsible to let us know. If not, we find someone from a different field or who we're trying to target to give us this information.
Yeah, that's great. I'm curious to hear your thoughts about how you define the word process within the context of manufacturing. You started as a process engineer, and you've been involved heavily with manufacturing processes over the years and growing those processes, refining those processes. It's a little embarrassing to admit now, but it took me a little while after I started my career as an engineer to really understand what people meant when they were talking about process. And I thought, process? What process? What is this process that everyone keeps talking about? And finally, it, slowly dawned on me that, it's manufacturing. That's what we're talking about. I mean, it's not completely synonymous, but it's largely, synonymous with manufacturing. If you were speaking to a new engineer or maybe a lay person outside of engineering altogether, how would you describe or define this idea of process?
In my opinion, it's a set of steps or instructions that would lead to an expected output. Whether it's making medical devices, whether it's making the laundry at home, right? These are the instructions, with a defined input as well, right? So if we have the raw materials that we need, if we have the specifications which come in the form of drawing, right? That we need, and we have that last component, which is the steps to put these together. What do we do with this raw material, with this assembly of raw materials? How do we do it? What equipment do we use? We should be able to repeat it X amount of times, right? To get an expected output. That's how I look at it.
I love that. It reminds me of how I have thought about the word system for a long time. It pretty much the same definition that you just gave is how I have defined system in the past to myself and to others. And now it makes me wonder what's the difference between a system and a process. And maybe it's just semantics at that point, or maybe you could say that a system uses processes. I'm not sure. I'm probably just getting into the weeds at this point.
It's the same. I agree with you. To me, at least,
kind of the same.
It's the same.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, you're in a leadership role, and you have been for some time. What are a couple of your favorite leadership principles that you found to be most effective in driving team performance?
I have my role, which is on paper. This is your responsibilities, right? This is what you have to do. But to me, I define my role as a coach, a mentor, and someone who tries to develop independent decision makers, right? Whether they're individual contributors or team leaders themselves, or even members on other teams, right? And in my opinion, having independent decision makers locally, right, speeds up the processes, speeds up decisions, lowers the risk, right, of having wrong directions or multiple changes of directions. If one team leader says, "Oh no, we're doing it this way. Oh no, we're selecting this material," or "No, we need 5 team members to assemble this handle," for example, or so on. Then no, hold on, we need 10. Let's go invest more. Let's buy another machine, $200,000, whatever it is. So it's educating team members and coaching them to take different points into consideration to make the right decision. And I truly believe making a decision, even if there's a risk for it not to be the right decision, is better than spending time without any decision and not moving at all.
Well said. Well said. I remember I had a boss early on. I think it was my first engineering job ever. I was an intern, actually. I was still going to school. And my boss was telling me about how he got hired at this company. And he said he interviewed with the president of the company and told him that, I know how to make a decision. It might not always be the right decision, but I can make a decision. And I remember thinking to myself at the time, as a very young, inexperienced engineer, why in the world would you say something like that it might not be the right decision? You know, you have to make the right decisions, obviously. And of course, as I've gotten older and older, I realized that, you know, you don't always make the right decision. But yeah, the ability to make a decision and move forward is almost always going to be more productive than just, you know, vacillating back and forth. I have a quote on my wall at home in my home office that says, I have to think about it now. Well, it's when in doubt, assume you're right. Decisiveness is productive.
Oh, nice.
And I think that's so great. You know, when in doubt, assume you're right. Decisiveness is productive. And I've certainly found that to be the case. You also were talking about, mentoring and growing your engineering team. And it made me think about a conversation I had with my son just the other night. We were talking about, school and, you know, grades. He's in high school and he's very aware of the grades he's getting and how those might lead to, his ability to get into college or not to get into college. And so we're talking about that. And I said, you know, the grades are important. You know, you should certainly get good grades. But really at the end of the day, what this world needs is more problem solvers, not more task completers. And so, I had, in fact, several years back, we dug a pool in our backyard. We put a pool in, and the digging company came in and said, "Okay, before we can dig, we need you to take all the grass out, right? So dig all the grass out and then let us know. We'll come in and we'll dig." Can't remember why now they needed to take the grass out. Anyway, I hired a landscaper and said, "Hey, I need you to come take all this grass out so our digging company can come in and put a giant hole in the backyard." And this landscaper said, "No problem. You know, we only have hand tools. We've got shovels and pickaxes, and I think we can probably get down 3 or 4 inches with the tools that we have, and that should be enough to get the grass out." And I said, "Okay, that's fine, but really the problem I'm hiring you to solve is to take the grass out, not to dig 3 or 4 inches down. So I just need you to get the grass out." He says, "Yeah, shouldn't be a problem. 3 or 4 inches should do it." So okay, great, hire him. Next day, I come home from work and I go into the backyard, and lo and behold, there's still grass there, right? Sure enough, they've taken 3 or 4 inches out, but there's still grass there. And I call him up and I'm like, "Hey, what's going on? There's still grass here." And he says, "Well, I don't know. We took 3 or 4 inches out, right?" And I'm like, "Come on, man. I didn't hire you to take 3 or 4 inches out. I hired you to take the grass out." So anyway, the point is, what the world needs is problem solvers, not task completers. And if we can train our up and coming generation of engineers, not just to complete tasks, but to solve problems, man, what a great, world that will be for all of us.
Absolutely. No, I'm sorry to hear that. Sorry to hear that. Yeah, but no, you're 100% right. I mean, they knew, it seems like they knew to do one thing. This is it. right? And whether it works for you or not, this is what we're doing. It seems like.
Exactly. I was told to do this thing, so I'm going to do this thing. And beyond that, I don't care or know, but I'm doing this thing.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Nice.
Well, let's see here. What kind of advice would you give young engineers who want to get into the medical device industry?
The big one is be ready for documentation. Yeah, as a highly regulated field, documenting requirements, design, and process specifications, test methods, results, evaluations, qualifications, risk assessments, you name it. It's part of our day-to-day life, right?
Yeah.
So that's the big one. On the other hand, a career in the medical device field can be satisfying. I mean, part of the feedback that we receive, it's not always complaints, right? I mean, complaints is a big thing, and FDA eyes, oh, you're receiving this feedback. What are you doing about it? How are you responding? How fast are you responding, right? And recalls and so on. But part of the feedback that we receive is how our devices helped patients during surgery, how some of them saved lives, or they reduced recovery time for someone. They can go in, get a procedure done with one of our wound retractors, for example. 2 hours later, they're back home, right? No infection or minimal risk of infection. We say that and so on. But hearing this feedback, especially when we're working on a new device that just got released, or an ongoing device that's been with the company for 20 years, hearing this feedback is a reward to all the work that we put in to make sure we deliver and release quality products to the field.
Yeah, that's how fulfilling, right? For medical device engineers who worked on that product. Wonderful. Well, let's see. I think we're getting towards the end. Maybe we'll just do one or two more questions and then wrap things up. What's one thing that you have done to accelerate the speed of engineering?
The main thing is being hands-on. Whether it's observing processes, speaking to production team members, or from a new product point of view, speaking to surgeons, attending cases, and so on. I believe, and I try to apply being hands-on. So not sitting at my desk and then relying on what I hear or the emails that I get or the Teams chat or so on. I barely sit at my desk because, again, everything's on site. Let me go speak with people. Let me go observe what's going on. Let me go attend this meeting or two meetings or so on to get a feel. Are we on the right track? Are we not on the right track? Is there something that I can help with from my experience, from something that I've seen before in projects, right? Yes, I know the default path is to do X, Y, and Z and to build a prototype batch, then a development batch, and then do this. Guys, we have 100 devices that were scrapped sitting in a cubicle. Can we use them? Can we use them for testing? Oh, yeah, sure. All right. We're done. So, right. I mean, it's small items like that. Honestly, this morning, I was in that situation. So it's just small items like that. I believe it's very important for any team leader or anyone to just be hands-on. Go and see what's going on. Not just rely and listen and make decisions and give guidance based on what you hear.
Yeah, I could not agree with you more. The importance of being hands-on, whether that's physically hands-on or just in the same room, watching, observing what's happening. It's so interesting to me that, I've been an engineer in engineering now for over 20 years, and I like to think, at least, that I've learned a couple of things during that time. And I'll observe a younger engineer, maybe that's working on something, and there will be things that are so obvious to me that, why are you doing that way? Do it this way, or here's another option, or just here's another way to think about it. We're all in different points along our growth trajectories, right? So it's not reasonable to expect a young junior engineer to have the same experience that someone older has. But leadership is so important because it allows us to accelerate the speed of engineering. If we just had younger engineers that didn't have that experience, then things wouldn't get done so quickly. And I hope it doesn't sound like I'm being disparaging towards younger engineers. I was a younger engineer myself a long time ago, and I made a lot of these mistakes. And to have older, more experienced senior engineering leaders that can come in and say, that's a good try. I like your thought. Here's maybe another option to consider, or have you thought about doing it this way? It's incredible how much having that dynamic, the senior leadership engineer involved hands-on in the process, it's incredible how much that can speed things up and accelerate the overall, process of engineering.
Yeah, makes sense. You're right.
Yeah. All right. Well, Jad, thank you so much for being with us today. What a great conversation this has been. Thank you for sharing your experience and wisdom with us. Anything else that you'd like to share before we sign off today?
Not much. I mean, it's, I see my career and my trajectory so far as I'm very fortunate, right, to have had good leaders. Honestly, I hear a lot about stories where, somebody's facing challenges with their team leader, right? Somebody's facing challenges with what they're doing, but I enjoy what I do and I'm still challenged. I'm still learning, right? So, and yeah, as you said, we all started as fresh graduate engineers, not knowing what to do and just ask questions, ask questions. It's fine to, it's not easy to have that self-confidence and to go and ask questions and put yourself out there and a new job. But that's what I would recommend to others. Yeah.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Well, Jad, how can people get in touch with you?
The easiest way is through LinkedIn. You can message me or send a notification or so on, and I'll get back to you.
Terrific. All right. Well, thank you so much again for being on the Being an Engineer podcast.
Thank you so much. It was great chatting with you. Thanks, Aaron.
I'm Aaron Moncur, founder of Pipeline Design and Engineering. If you liked what you heard today, please share the episode. To learn how your team can leverage our team's expertise developing advanced manufacturing processes, automated machines, and custom fixtures, complemented with product design and R&D services, visit us at teampipeline.us. To join a vibrant community of engineers online, visit thewave.engineer. Thank you for listening.